Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Welcome to the Along Came a Writer Network. Opinions expressed in our shows do not necessarily reflect those of the network.
Good day to you. I'm Linda Kozar, your host on the Along Came a Writer talk show, a show that features true stories from truly amazing people. I will be interviewing an amazing guest, Merilyn Howton Marriott, author, speaker, and counselor, whose upcoming release, The Children of Main Street, will rend your heart. It did that to me, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Well written and heart-rending. Merilyn is an author, speaker, and counselor. Her first novel, The Children of Main Street, is at the publishing house of Firefly Southern Fiction and will be released next year. She won first place for unpublished manuscripts in women's contemporary fiction at the Florida Christian Writers Conference 2017. I don't want to say Christian twice. Welcome to the show, Merilyn.
Thank you for having me, Linda.
Oh, it's
I'm
such
glad
a
to
pleasure.
be here.
Yes. So let's just dive right into this and talk about your debut novel. Tell us a little bit about it, and for our listeners later, Merilyn is going to read an excerpt, probably toward the end of the show. Yeah, right at the end, and it'll be a nice sneak peek into a book that won't be out until November. So tell us about your novel, The Children of Main Street.
Well, I love this book. I love the work that I did that led to writing the book. It's a book about a gal named Katie, and she is a licensed professional counselor, same as me. And so you have two love stories. It's a love story between Catherine and her husband, Jordan, and it's a love story between Catherine or Katie and the children. She goes to extraordinary means to help children that she feels like has gone through, molestations, beatings, abandonment, just all kinds of things that kids have gone through. And Katie will really do anything to help the kids.
And that, in these days, counselors are probably afraid to go to those lengths, right?
Yes. When I look back on it, I wonder, I probably could have gotten into trouble for some of the things that I did when I was the one in the counseling seat, but I always felt like God called me into that profession to be a licensed counselor. And so I just, sometimes I think back then I was naive, and would think God would just cover me with anything. And it all did work out in my life, and it works out in Katie's life in the book.
Well, we should probably say that some of the experiences in this book are based on your own as a counselor.
Yes, and I want to, underscore that it is based on, inspired by, because I would not expose in everything that happened to people without, it's just inspired by. But yes, I worked through incredible situations, and I'm glad that I had that opportunity. I wouldn't trade that opportunity for anything else in the world, because I feel like with God's help, I truly made a difference in these children's lives. And, when... oh, go ahead.
No, go on. No, you
Oh,
go
I
on.
was just going to... Okay. When I sold the practice and moved with my husband to Ohio for him to be the vice president and dean of the college, we got there, and I had loved my practice so much, and I got there, and even though I did teach at Mount Union College in Alliance, Ohio, I didn't know what to do with myself, because I had been a college professor on Tuesdays and Thursdays and a clinician on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I missed the work so badly that I sat down. I just started thinking up stories with the experiences that I had. And, to find something to do with myself, I actually wrote the book, the first draft, longhand, on yellow legal pads when I was working.
Which is rare these days.
I'm sorry? What?
Which is rare these days.
Oh, my goodness, I know it. And then I figured out that wouldn't work, but it took me a while. And I had the attitude, which seemed okay at the time, but didn't when I started writing a book, was I employ all these people. I had a secretary, an office manager, and all of those people had to have office skills. And so, they did all of my word processing for me. And so I never learned. I was a great therapist, I believe, with God's help, but I never, ever learned to use the computer. But I have learned, writing this book, how to use the computer. that was a big deal for me.
Now, before you were published, I mean, this took some time.
Yes.
Did you have the idea that it might be relatively easy to do? I mean, a lot of people kind of have that impression, especially if they were a professor,
right?
Or had a lot of experience Yeah.
I think I thought it would be easy. Now, writing the first draft of the first book, the one that will be out on November 15th, I just sat down and it wrote me. Now, I haven't found writing subsequent things quite that easy. But for that one book, I just sat down. I know, but I was just so full of these stories.
Well, and people write books. They might write, say, 10 pages and say, well, I finished my book. Or,
I've heard
finished
that a lot.
A good portion of it. Well, it's 10 pages.
There you go.
But there's a lot you learn in the whole process.
Now, my gosh.
Can you take us back to your practice and tell us a bit about it? Because even the way things are described, like your porch and your swing with the quilts on it. Can you tell us about all those nice little touches you had for the kids?
I tell you, I absolutely loved that building. It was like a second home to me. And I had always, even when I was in graduate school and I knew I was going to open a practice, I never saw myself in an office building, because people can be very broken because of a situation, and they don't want to face, a brick and metal high rise or something. So I had always known that I was going to find an old house, and I was going to have it renovated into a very functioning clinic inside. But the house was 90 years old, and it had incredible concrete porches on the front and the back, and each end of the porch was flanked by these big posts, like columns. And I thought, that's my office. The first time I ever drove by it. Now, it took a little while to make it happen, because we had to do so much. The inside had to be torn down. It had to have a new roof. It had to have paint. But the building was just, it was such a blessing to find the exact home that I wanted for my practice. But yeah, we had
good
actually
bones.
it had perfect bones. That's exactly right. And I had actually underestimated the success of how many people would come, especially when I hired a social worker, and I had a couple of interns. But we had a kind of a parking problem situation. So my son worked there as an insurance clerk, and people learned to just drop their keys when they came in because they knew Michael was going to move it wherever it would fit. But the building itself, and then I'm a flower person. I've always had some kind of little flower garden. And so, I mean, it's the most gorgeous hibiscus and everything you can think of. That we landscaped the yard. Of course, just the side yard, we covered the front yard in concrete, for a parking place, which turned out to be too small. But it was just absolutely a great place. I have a
Just
funny story about that.
Yeah. To make it a pleasant experience.
I'm telling you, I have a funny story if you think we have time.
Oh, we do. We have a lot of time, actually.
Yes, we do. Okay. Well, when I first opened the clinic, and it was really the fulfillment of a dream, and people came just like I thought they would. And I would always pray, Lord, give me the words to say that will help, and please don't ever let me hurt anybody. And I would say that every day when I was walking in the back door. But anyway, when we were rotating cars all the time, I would go home every day and tell Rick, that's my husband, I have a parking problem. And he would say, how was today? Baby, there's not enough parking. And so every day I would come home so frustrated. And one day he said, get in the car. And I said, okay. And we drove a few blocks from our house, and there was this Mexican restaurant that at one time I had liked, but under new management, I didn't like it. And when he pulled into the parking lot, I said, Rick, I don't want to eat here. And he said, Merilyn, no one else does either. And I looked around at a parking lot that would easily have parked 100 cars. And I'm not kidding, because it was sitting right in the middle of the biggest parking lot you've ever seen. And there were places, for the people who worked there to park. And then there were 2 cars that were customers. And he said, sweetheart, this is a parking problem.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
That's what he was letting me know. When you're so successful, you're moving cars and moving cars. That's not really a parking problem. But having a business where nobody wants to come, that's a parking problem.
Right.
And I never looked at it as being so terrible again. There was a store next door that had a car wash, and the car wash went defunct, and I asked them if my staff could park there. So over time we worked it out, but I never whined about it again. I just kept saying, God, thank you for all of these people.
Yes, thank you for all these cars.
Yes.
Constantly filling the parking lot.
Absolutely. But it was and we put in the swings and the rocking chairs you're talking about. As a matter of fact, the front porch, it had a swing and 2 rocking chairs. The back porch had a swing and some wicker chairs, but the front porch actually served as an overflow waiting room. On pretty days, a pleasant one. And out back, I would take most of my children clients, because if you've ever been in the business of therapy, you'll know that children don't want to sit in a 10 by 12 room. So we would go out there, and it's amazing how easier it is to get them to talk to you outside. So the building was
a nice
perfect.
swing with a quilt wrapped around them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful.
Nice. So how do you as a counselor separate yourself from the emotional angst of hearing all these terrible things sometimes. I mean, really, really awful things. How do you compartmentalize that?
Angst is a really good word. And when I first started, I would be so overwhelmed. And it's amazing how when a client will dump their stuff on you, they feel so free, which is what you want. And then there I am with these stories inside. And I probably looked like a moron the first year I was in practice, because when I got in the car, I would let down all the windows and I would just say, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. You know, because I would think my husband needs me, my children needs me, so get out, get out. And then I thought I had learned to handle it better, but then I figured out later that I went 10 years without ever crying a tear. And even if there was a disaster in my own home, I would immediately go into caretaker role. You know, instead of listening like a mother or whatever, you know, I would go into caretaker. You do this and you do this, and it's going to be all right. We're going to handle this. And so I think the 15 to 20 years that I stayed was long enough. But the other thing that helped me so much was I taught at the university on Tuesdays and Thursdays and worked at the clinic Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So every other day, I could sit or stand in front of a group of people that I could just assume were totally mentally healthy. And if they weren't, I didn't have to hear it. Although I don't want to make it sound like I didn't love the work, because I truly love the work. You know, that's what pushed me to those yellow pads and my pencil. I missed it that much, is that I had to start writing something down.
Were there some children in particular, though? Were there some children in particular who you found yourself in a puddle of emotion over?
Oh my gosh. And I'm not ashamed to write that in the book. You know, when I felt like I was losing my breath, or I felt like my lungs had been vacuumed of air and I didn't know what to say, only God could help me. I just, like I said, I'm not afraid to write it in the book how I felt. And I think that pulls the reader in closer to the story, that they can actually become part of the story, because I write pretty deep, Linda. You have read a couple of chapters, but, you know, I get into a real deep point of view, and I can't. Yeah, and I can't imagine people not being drawn into the story. When I was doing those most recent edits, you know, a writer goes through edit after edit after edit, and when I was doing, yeah, we were. I can still get, you know, how you get drawn in as a reader to other people's stuff. I got so drawn in again that I would sit here and bawl looking for parentheses that weren't in there. You know, it's really touching. And I have had a lot of people ask me, because I know that my category is women's contemporary fiction, and I have had a lot of people ask me, would a man ever want to read this book? And my son, who has lived in a blended family, I would send him at the end of every work day, I would send him the copy, and he experienced such healing from some things that had happened to him in his blended family with his father. And so I think it's a book for everyone that has ever felt abandoned, misused. And I think it's particularly male or female. I wish that anybody who step-parents, because now I saw a lot of adults, but I chose to write about the children. And I think step-parents, sometimes I think they're unaware of some of the things they're doing, you know, showing partiality to their own child. And of course, some of them downright awful. You know, we hear all kind of stories. But I think it would be my dream that every blended male or female would read this book.
Did you ever find it difficult to be in the same room with some of the parents or step parents when you knew that they had just treated that child? They had been like a human waste product to that child. They had just been incredibly evil. Was it difficult to sit there?
Yeah, there's and I write two different stories. Of course, like I said, it's based on and inspired by, but I let the reader know that I'm having a terrible time sitting there. And there have been times when I'm sitting in with step parents and I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? You know, just listen to your own self, to what you're saying to me. And there also have been times when I have had to leave the room for a minute, you know, just to get my breathing under control, to get my anger under control, and to say a word of prayer. God, who are these people? And, you know, if you could just open their ears and let them hear objectively what they're saying to me.
Yeah.
But yes, it was very, very difficult.
Well, I think people without any sort of self-awareness, do you think that's the main problem? They don't really hear what they're saying. They don't really hear how it sounds to other people, you know?
I believe that because some of the things that I've heard, I don't think anybody would let come out of their mouth if they could hear themselves objectively.
Now, do you feel like this book is sort of the apex of all you've done in your career? Like this book was like you've been working toward, you know, helping all these kids, but this book is the culmination. Okay.
In some ways, I feel. Yeah, in some ways, I feel that way. I know that I had a very successful career, you know, there in the clinic and at the university. And so I'm very proud of my career from the time I got out of college. And I didn't go to college at the time most people do. I didn't start until I was 35 and didn't get out till I was 42. But then still, you know, had years to work. But being able to tell these stories, in some ways, yes, it's the apex of my career. And it also released my mind from thinking about it all of the time. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know, like I would think of these people when I should be asleep. And so to be able to write and give the lost a voice, you know, people that had no voice at all, it was very fulfilling. Very, very fulfilling.
And where some of these children are now? Do you ever wonder?
I wondered, and I've checked on some of them. And, you know, just...
I suspected that had to happen.
Yes. You know, you try to check around in ways that you won't interrupt their life. And I do have a few adults that drive all the way from Port Arthur. Where I started, they drive 2 hours, stay and talk 2 hours, and drive back 2 hours because they don't want to start with somebody new. And but I have, especially through the people that used to work for me that still live in that area, I have checked. Yeah, one of them I checked on directly, and I have a relationship with now.
Now, but I thought we would generalize things more at this point. Like for those would-be authors out there who have truth stories to share, tell us why it's important to write those truth stories as fiction rather than nonfiction.
In one word, anonymity. You know how I watch a lot of Datelines, and there are a lot of people who have a well, there you go, we have something in common. But you know, they want to testify, they want to help out, but they don't want their face shown. And you'll see other things where people will wear a wig and let them do, makeup to, give them a bigger nose or small, whatever they do.
Voice
But
changing,
a lot of,
yeah.
oh yeah, a lot of things. But yeah, you can't write it as a memoir. Of course, everybody's been afraid of memoirs since James Fry, but I would never write it as a memoir because that would mean that everything I said is true. And so I've written it as fiction, so to give everyone anonymity, and of course change stories, combined stories, just done all kind of things to make, and the book is a lot fiction, but but all inspired by things that I have sat in a chair and listened to. I didn't. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on. No, go on. I'm host. I'll tell you. Go on. Go on. I want to hear you.
Well, it's just real important to write things as fiction. When people come to a therapist, they know they have anonymity. You can't even be subpoenaed to tell things unless there's a compelling reason, like a murder or something. But
right.
It's just real important to, for the people who trusted me, to not write it as a memoir or not to write it exactly the way it happened.
Well,
but it's still important to give them okay.
Now moving off I'm moving along in the same direction for other authors out
okay.
there.
No problem.
About how you got your big break. When did you connect with your present editor? And you can tell us her name and everything and the publishing house.
Okay, I sure will. I had written this book, and then I finally got it all typed and everything. And I heard about a writers' conference. See, when I wrote the book, Linda, I didn't even know there were Christian writers' conferences. I just wrote a book. And
before you and I met, you went to one, and
yes.
And then I think we met, and I read, some of what you had, and I thought, wow, this is great. And then so it took years. But then you finally went to another conference.
Yes, and that was Blue Ridge.
Yes,
the Blue Ridge Conference.
It's a great conference for anybody who's...
It is a great conference. It's a large conference. So if you are new, if you're an introvert, and I'm an extrovert, but if you're an introvert, you might want to start at a smaller conference. There was 500 or 600 people here at Blue Ridge, but they give you opportunities to sign your name, like they have 15-minute intervals available, and they just put their name at the top and what they do, whether they're an editor, a publisher, whatever they are. And so you look and see, well, let me see who I want to talk to. And so you just fill out your name on one of their 15-minute slots. And I had already been, before I went over to Eva Marie Everson, who is my hero, but I had already gone to several other places, and I sat down in front of them, and nobody didn't like, I know that's a double negative, but nobody didn't like the stories. I mean, if they could tell, I start right in the middle of a session, and they were like, oh my gosh. But that was before I had put in two major conflicts. In my mind, the conflicts that the children went through were enough conflicts. And so several people, including Aaron Gansky, said it is perfect the way it is if you want to sell it as a book of short stories. Now, I had never wanted to do that because I thought the life of the therapist, Katie, and her husband, Jordan, and the secretary, Alicia, I thought they carried, the red ribbon that would hold all of the stories together. And so, I would go to other people, and again, no one said, they said, this is good. And, we'd been told in the session where you get together at the beginning. They say, do this, don't do this, don't do that. And they said, don't expect anybody to take your one sheet because no one wants to carry 51 sheets in their luggage home. So I knew that. Yeah, it is true. So when I sat down in front of Eva Marie Everson, she just said, oh my gosh, because she had a situation that she couldn't write about. And she said, I can't write about my situation, but I can help you get this right. But she, again, said, while it was powerful, I had to have two conflicts. So it had to be rewritten. And one of the conflicts is Jordan gets tired of Catherine giving too much of herself to the kids, and he leaves her. And then the other conflict was I made myself younger and childless. So that was part of my obsession over these children, was how badly I wanted a child. But the minute I sat down in front of Eva, I knew she was an editor. I had no idea she was the acquisitions editor for Firefly, which, by the way, is just a portion of the southern portion of Lighthouse Publishers of the Carolinas. That's the main name. And when I started to, I knew it was a God thing, and she did too. And so when I reached for my one sheet, she said, "Oh, wait, that's mine." And I said, "You want this?" And she said, "Yes, this is mine." And so I heard from her. I know it was so funny because I'd been trained not to offer them my one sheet, just to show it to them. But she took it, and she called me within 2 days after the conference was over, because all my contact information was on that one sheet.
Get your energy back, because it takes a couple days after a conference.
Oh, let me tell you, you're in a coma the first day, and then you start to move around a little bit the second day. But by the second day, she called me, and then she put me in touch with an agent. Her name is Linda Glass, and that was the sweetest experience. I sent her the book, and oh gosh, it wasn't more than 30 minutes when she emailed me and said, I like this book. And then in another 30 minutes, she wrote back and said, I love this book. And I don't know, within another hour, she said, this book is amazing. And then on her fourth email, I know. And on her fourth email, she said, can we talk in the morning? And I thought, well, oh, Lord, she's either going to tell me she would like to represent me, or she's going to tell me it's a good book, but it's not what she does, and, try to send me on to someone else. But she took me on, and I'm really glad I have an agent. I know a lot of people don't want to pay an agent, but I'm really, really glad I have one. And she's wonderful.
An agent can make a big difference in your career, definitely.
Oh, yes. I mean, a lot of people don't want to pay them their 15%, but I'd rather have, I'd rather sell a lot of books and let her have her cut than sell fewer books and keep all of it,
Well, for those who might just be starting out, a lot of people don't know the difference between getting something independently published or getting something traditionally published. There are two forms of publishing. And,
right.
In traditional publishing, you will receive a contract, and a lot of times in advance, which is money that they pay you ahead of time in anticipation of earning back. And once you've earned back what they give you, whether it's $5,000 or $10,000, then you start getting royalties. Yeah, and now some people don't understand how that works. In indie publishing, you're in charge of everything, of getting everything done, and royalties.
And and Linda, you know more about that than I do. I have not gone the indie publishing route.
Well, it's
I understand it. I think. Okay. What do you like best? Now here I am asking you questions.
I like the control for one thing. It's kind of fun because you hire your own editors and stuff. But I also think that some books will never make it to a publishing house. They will never get past,
Okay.
what they think they can sell. There are a lot of good books that were never
Right.
published before, and
Absolutely.
and now they are being published, and it is nice. But it gives writers options, which I do both, and
Right.
traditional and indie, and I love it. I love the freedom. So,
Right.
but now let's see. Yeah, I want to know how getting published has changed your life. I mean, you don't have the book in your hands yet, which will be exciting. But are you planning a
Right.
launch party? Are you thinking about that?
Oh, absolutely. I took a class. I was just in Florida again in February, and I took a class, and I'm glad I did, on how to launch a book without losing your mind. And she told us that, yeah, and the main thing she said is you can't do this alone. You got to have a launch team. And I've been asking people to be on my launch team. And of course, I have to give them a book, let them read it, and, put I'm losing a word, but what they think of it on Amazon. What word am I needing?
A review?
Yes, thank you, to put a review on Amazon, and then be my little worker bees, because, we were taught never underestimate word of mouth and people telling about your book, and oh my gosh, you got to read this book, and so on and so forth. And so,
now,
I'm planning to have a big launch. I'm already collecting presents to give away.
Well, that's good. Well, getting that contract, I mean, where were you when you got that contract? I mean, because a lot of writers remember that moment when they got their first one. So
I felt like
I
had $1 million. Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had just won $1 million. Not that I think I'm going to, sell $1 million worth of book, but it meant so much to me. It meant everything to me, and it was kind of like it affirmed me. Like, I thought the book was really good. Rick thought the book was really good, and my youngest son had been healed of a lot of his bad step-parenting issues, and so I knew how the family felt about it. But when you get a contract, and it's in black and white, and it has your name on it, and it has the book of your name, I mean, I just started crying. That made,
what I find so affirming about a traditional contract is that they are your first readers. Like, they read it and they want to pay you for it. Just like readers who will find your book and want to pay you for it, they want to buy it. And that's what I find so affirming about traditional publishing.
Yes, I mean,
I
laughed. I laughed later, but I cried first. It was just one of those things.
Where were you? Were you at home?
Yes, I was at home. Rick had gone out to the mail, and he brought it in. And of course, he was about to tear up too. And I just, I held on to him and just jumped around, and it was just a real affirming time. I'm not the only one who thinks this book is good, and I felt that way too when my agent started sending all those emails. It's like, I like this book.
Was your
it was in the mail.
It was a contract. Okay. How exciting!
Yes. Oh yeah, it came in the mail, and Rick came in and said, "I think I have something here you're gonna want." Well, yeah, that's how I got it. It was my second book. I know that you're not scheduled to talk about this today, but I have a contract for it too, and I have a full draft, and it's going to be called "God Bless the Child," because they want. Now, I don't have a contract for the third one, but I know that Eva has mentioned that she would like 3 books set in the clinic, just a series of 3. And I've got my first story together for my third one, and but I don't have a draft, but I do have a draft of the one under contract.
Well, so then you have to think about what comes after that, after the third one. I mean, I know you can think ahead, like you've got the draft for the second one done, and then you write a third one, but you also
Right.
have to start thinking, well, what's next?
You know, I know, and the only thing I've written is about, being a therapist to very broken people. As a matter of fact, when people ask me at conferences, what do you write? And I say I write about mending broken children. And that was the way I got a lot of attention. I mean, you can't say, huh? When somebody says they write about mending broken children, I mean, ears peak then. And they're like, tell me more. And that's what I've done. I don't desire to write about the clinic past the third book. I'm not sure exactly what I've done. I have started a novel about my mother. I think I will probably finish that, and it'll be on a total new subject. But my mother was such a woman inspired by faith. My father was a minister, but we joked about this. We always said my mom was so heavenly minded she was no earthly good, which is not true.
Yeah.
She
I've
was
heard
a
that
lot
one
of
before.
earthly.
That's true.
Yeah, and I mean she was just such a prayer, and had such an incredible testimony of being divinely healed of stage cancer, of stage 4 cervical cancer, and God just healed her instantly. And she went to MD Anderson before and had one treatment. She said she wasn't going back. Then when God healed her, she said, I'm going back. And I said, why are you going back? She said, I want this to be a documented miracle. And it is documented. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take anybody's word for it. But she was totally healed and died 35 years later of heart disease. Never had another cancer cell in her body.
It is so important to document it. And Lee Strobel has a book, The Case for Miracles, and he documented all these miracles as like a newspaper reporter would. And I think it is important to have that, have that proof. So what advice would you give to a beginning author out there, to our listeners who are interested?
Oh my goodness. Go to a writer's conference. I mean, because like I said earlier, I wrote a book. I knew it was good. Had no idea what to do with it. Absolutely no idea. I mean, because, if you don't go to conferences and you don't meet people and be met and, know and be known, when you write a book, no one cares, except your family.
It's impersonal to send someone a hook for your book over, email. And not all publishing houses take that, and not all agents take that, so it's very difficult these days to get there. So conference is a great way to do it. That's the best piece of advice.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think I'd say
and watch
pray a
your
lot
spelling.
Too,
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I have prayed over every segment of this book till God's probably saying, okay, I'm going to bless you or shut up. One or the other. I just, but I believe that he wants this story told. And back to, how did I not, just be a puddle of mess? God called me to that chair to do therapy. Even when I was in college, I knew that. I knew the first day I signed up that I went to be a therapist. And it was so funny. People would tell me, I've changed my major. And I think, God didn't send you? Because when God sends you, you know what your major is. But I knew, even taking statistics classes, I knew that was it, because I was called of God.
Well, now would be a good time in the show for you to read an excerpt from your book, The Children of Main Street, which comes out on November 15th.
Yes, this is the book that releases on November 15th. Let me set it up, since it looks like we have time. Bailey, a little girl named Bailey, she starts out 6 years old, and she's a main character in the book. She's a main character in the second book too, and will be in the third book. Okay, here's how I met her. My heart stopped. A tiny waif of a little girl sat alone in a chair facing Alicia's desk. Her hair was so blonde it was almost white, shot through with subtle hints of red. I stood behind her, touched her shoulder. The child didn't look at me. Instead, she perched on the edge of the chair, her feet still dangling in midair, and stared at the floor. She wore white tights and a white dress gathered above the waist and dotted here and there with little clusters of baby blue ribbon flowers. Her little white shoes were crowned with, of all things, little blue ribbon flowers attached right below the half-moon curve of the slippers. Little tufts of tights puckered between the flower-adorned curves and the leather straps across her feet. This lovely dress and shoes had no doubt been a dead mother's loving purchase for Easter Sunday. Her mother had been killed 6 days before I met her. Murdered.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a pretty heavy book. I give you what comic relief I can, but I mean, this is if you're wanting to read something to make you laugh, this is not it. But if you want to read something that will touch you in every part of your emotions, your body, your mind, this is the book, The Children of Main Street.
And the description is so wonderful. You are a meld between fiction and nonfiction. A lot of nonfiction writers think that they don't have to really put that sort of fiction technique of writing into their writing, but it really makes it richer, and it makes the whole experience so much better. It puts you there. It puts you in the moment with the characters.
Yes.
I mean, but and opposite too. Yeah.
Yes. It was so funny when I was writing it and Eva was editing. If I got out of that, she would just shoot back, deep point of view, please. And so I learned to really get inside my characters, where the reader would follow me inside my characters and inside the leading person, which is the therapist, Katie.
Well, I think what people, including myself, like the most about, say if I'm reading a nonfiction book, I love the personal testimonies, the stories. And so,
yes,
being drawn to fiction, yeah. And so I'll skip past a lot of the other stuff and go for the personal testimonies. But in the fiction book that you have to sit there and wonder, well, which part of this is based on the true thing? But it all sounds so real and so believable that you won't know.
Yes, I don't think you'll care as the reader. Now, that's just my opinion, but of course, whose opinion would I give you if I didn't give you mine? But I know women say that all the time. That's just my opinion. But I really think you'll get so deep into their stories, and it will remind you of something you've seen, something you've heard of, something you've even seen on Law and Order, SVU. I don't think you'll care after a while. I mean, I think you will get so lost in the book that you just really won't care. I think it'll all be really relevant, really personal to you.
Well, now, is there anything you won't talk about in a book? Is there
yes,
any
there is.
You won't go for?
Yes, my physical frailties. I've always felt like God gave me this fierce little spirit in this weeny little body, and I won't talk about that.
Okay.
I mean, I that may not have been what you were looking for at all, but and I don't write about my children.
Okay. No, but I mean, say a heinous crime, or is there some sort of thing that you won't
No,
even touch on?
there's
You'll
some
touch on.
heinous crimes in this book. I'll write about it.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I,
it's real. It's real life in
it's
a way.
real.
I mean,
It's real
yeah.
life. I know I had one editor that didn't work out, and she said, you don't have to go into this much gory detail. And so I read it through again, and I thought, well, it could be a little lighter there. So I took out a little bit of it, but I still left the basic story in it. I mean, you see it every night on the 6 o'clock news.
Well, it wasn't, wouldn't it be nice if you could edit some of that out for the person who went through it, but you can't. The whole thing happened to
Right.
them,
The whole
and
thing happened to them.
people may not, they may want to soften things up, but it certainly didn't soften the blows the person took, the victim.
No, I know. And that's why the other editor that didn't work out also, she didn't want me to ever have any negative feelings against the parents that had abused their children. And I'm a human being. And I mean, I'm a human being called of God, but I'm a human being. And when somebody is sitting there telling me, this is his kid, I don't want it. I married him. He told me I wouldn't have to raise this kid. And now the fact that her mother's been murdered, changes nothing. I'm not raising the kid. I mean, I can't sit there and, I would let the writer know some of what I was thinking. And she wanted me to feel sorry for everybody. And I'm telling you, Linda, I'm a Christian, but there's some people that just, now I didn't say everything that, came to my mind, but I wrote a lot of it in, no parentheses, so I'm thinking it. But I don't have to be lovingly tolerant of everybody who came in, especially when the horror of what they have done is staring at me.
You don't have to like everyone.
I don't.
I mean, yeah, and that's the realness. That's the realness.
That is the realness. Yes.
Yeah. Of our lives. Now, we're running out of time. Can you believe it? Tell us about your new show coming up on Along Came a Writer. It's going to be on this very network. And,
I'm sorry.
Oh, are you okay? That's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
And we're set to debut this new show in June. This June.
Yes, we are.
So tell us.
I am really excited about it. And I want it to be a call-in show where people can call it in since I'm a therapist. And the name of my show is going to be The Bridge. And I want people to understand that it's the bridge to wholeness, being your best self. That doesn't mean being perfect. Nobody's perfect, and we all have to forgive ourselves for our frailties. But you can live your best self. And I would, anybody who has a question, and I will be talking about it, that there's life after depression, there's life after anxiety, there's life after divorce, there's life after childlessness, or something even happening to your child. And of course, that's one of the fears we all have is something happening to our child. But there is still a life for you if you will let God and a good therapist help you. So I'm hoping that people.
No, go on.
Go ahead.
Go on. I'm going to ask you a question after this.
Okay. I'm just hoping that people, even somebody that's thinking about actively ending their life and think I have nobody to call. Well, I want them to call, into the show at the Bridge. And
then you'll, of course, give them resources, places that they can.
Yes.
Turn to.
Oh, yes.
And which is awesome. And you're going to have guests on the show to talk about, different
yes, I
subjects
am.
like depression and all
I'll
that.
have.
I just think it's so exciting.
I do too. I'm real excited about it. And I can hardly wait. I mean, I've loved this. I could see how I could be addicted to this, just sitting here talking with you. And so I'm excited about it. And yeah, I'll have guests who are writers, and I'll have guests who aren't writers, who maybe are therapists or even ministers.
Yeah, and even people you haven't even thought about yet. Who come to
Yeah,
mind.
exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
So how can readers find you on social media and keep up on when your book is going to be released? Are you going to have sort of a newsletter or something you plan on releasing that they can sign up for?
Yes, and like I said, I'm getting my launch team together, and then we'll have launches, and then I will announce on Facebook.
Okay.
Kind of an announcement on Facebook. Don't forget it's coming out in 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks, and then a week, and so on and so forth. But they can get hold of me now. My website is being revamped right now, but I do have one, MerilynHowtonMarriott.com, and it will be greatly extended over what it is now. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Are you on Twitter?
And am I in what, hon?
On Twitter? Or
no,
Instagram?
No, but a friend is going to help me learn how to do all that. I thought they were going to teach it at the conference, when they did shows or they did workshops on social media, but they didn't really give you the beginning steps. It was a more advanced class. So I'm going to have help with that, or even dig it off of Google or even
YouTube.
You
can YouTube it. Now, for people looking for you, your name is spelled Merilyn Howton Marriott, Merilyn, middle name Howton, Houton, no, Howton.
Yes.
And then Marriott, Marriott. I don't know why I said you.
Like
I knew it was W. And so they can find you there, and they can connect, and then and you'll be taking names, for those who want to hear when your book is releasing, and when I'm sure the next 2 books will release, because they'll be hooked once they read the first one. They'll be like, oh,
well,
my
I
gosh,
sure hope so.
wait.
Yeah, and that's one thing I have.
No, go on.
Go ahead. Oh, that's one thing you always worry about in a series is, oh my God, the second one can't be a letdown. And,
oh no.
And so I don't think it is. As a matter of fact, it changes a little bit in that I'm not always in the therapy room. I do a little detective work in the second book.
Well, that's
trying
good.
to find out
a bit.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in the treatment room all the time. I'm out chasing somebody that I know did something terrible.
Well, and the good thing, you get better and better with each book you write. And I want to thank our listeners for visiting with us today on the Along Came a Writer show. My next guest will be historical fiction author Annette O'Hare, and she writes for Pelican Books. Merilyn, thank you so much for being on the show. We've had such a great time chatting, and the time just disappears. It goes so fast when you're chatting and having fun.
Yes. Yep, I've had a lot of fun today.
Thank you so much, and we're going to hear more from you because you'll have your own show.
That's exactly right. And don't forget, it's called The Bridge.
Thanks for being on Along Came a Writer. See you guys